Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, and I'm coming to you live on Saturday, May 5th. And we're here in the office, and I felt really inspired to try to help you guys. Plus I was coming from my daughter's soccer game, and I left something here that I needed to take home, and here we are. So anyways, I wanted to talk to you about adrenal fatigue and adrenaline, and what the difference is. And the reason I'm talking to you about this is because I know the majority of you who are new to this page may not know exactly what adrenal fatigue is. Or you may have heard about it and you're doing your own research and you're thinking, all of the symptoms sound like me, but I still need to know more information about it. Then there's those that already know about it and realize that there's this deep underlying hole of bad health or bad consequences that have been taking their toll for a long period of time and has gone a lot deeper than just the adrenals. And I realize a lot of you guys won't be watching this live, but I'm going to be posting this to the top of the page because I feel it's that important for everyone who's in this group to watch. So what happens is your adrenals are a very superficial level of the health problem, a very critical level of the health problem, and it goes very, very deep into how much it can impact. However, it means that it's a lot easier said than done to fix it. And that's what this whole page and this whole community is about, and giving you solutions and answers and making you think differently, making you think outside the box. It's not only about fixing my adrenals. It's not only about trying to maybe balance my blood sugar. And it's not only trying to go ketogenic or doing a different type of diet, but it's ultimately a different way to get in shape, a different way to get healthy, a different way to understand your body and really what's important in life, and having a deep, fulfilling life where you have energy to do these things. That's what this page is about. So why I wanted to talk to you today about adrenal fatigue and adrenaline, which I think everyone should know, is because the majority of you guys are stuck in overwhelm. And when I say stuck in overwhelm, you're stuck in the on position. I know it. I'm there, I've been there, and I'm not there now, but it's a very, very slippery slope in terms of it's a verb. And it's not something you just do one time and you fix. It's a constant slipping and checking, where you fall, you get back up, you do well, you fall, you get back up. But ultimately, with a lot of the people that are on this page, they are in overwhelm. They can't take their finger off the button. And that's where they're driving and they get anxious with the least little bit of thing, and it gets their breathing to come up too much, and then all of a sudden they can't turn that off button up. Their heart rate's racing and they can't settle down, and then they get butterflies in their stomach, and then you get a feeling of overwhelm, and that's a big problem. That's one of the things. We have a lot of other things too in terms of mood and anxiety and feeling not focused and not concentrated. There's also crashing in the middle of the day. There's also not being able to put on weight or take off weight. There's a lot of different things that are involved, and it's hard to relate that just to adrenal fatigue. That's a lot of things that are going on in the body that's not going properly, and it has impacted the adrenals, but it's also ultimately impacting your ability to just make energy at the end of the day. So we're talking about energy from the cellular level, from the mitochondria being able to get enough oxygen balancing with the free radicals and being able to make ATP with a lot of different hydrogen, and there's a lot of biochemistry in there. And you can go really, really deep into that, but at the end of the day, to boil it down into its simplest form, it means you need to be taking in oxygen efficiently. And that means clean oxygen. So what kind of clean oxygen are we talking about? Well, you don't have to be neurotic, but you can't have, fragrances all over your house. That's an example. You need to have clean air. The air we breathe potentially has mold. In Florida, there's a lot of moldy places, or you probably know of a lot of moldy places. So air is very, very important. So these are the things that I like to try to teach you guys, but let's get back to this and adrenaline. Adrenal fatigue versus adrenaline. So with adrenaline, we have the ability of you know, when I always use a terrible example, but being held up at gunpoint, which thank God, knock on wood, never has happened to me, but I couldn't imagine that amount of stress that I would get from that instantaneously overwhelming having my life being threatened. And a lot of people have that threat every day with things that shouldn't be eliciting that type of impact, like a gun being held at gunpoint. But that's what's happening, is to the point where your adrenaline is being released very, very quickly, and then there starts to be a production problem and a supply and demand problem and a quality of hormone problem where it's not working very well. And then throw on top of that medications and a bunch of different supplements and doing this, doing that, different diets, and you're not really sure how to manage all of that. That's what this whole community is for. That's what this is for. I saw someone who was on here the other day and they were asking about fibromyalgia. What should I do? How's this page going to help me? And the way this page is going to help you is it's all the same in that context where your weak link in your chain has been your musculoskeletal muscles, joints, achy pains. That has a lot to do with someone else who has brain fog, or someone else who has Hashimoto's, or someone else who has arthritis, and someone else who has Crohn's or colitis, or someone else who has MS. At the end of the day, those are different pathologies and which avenues they've gone down to impact and have further consequences with. But the prerequisites were very, very similar things. Stress, overwhelmingly stressed, not getting enough oxygen, not just at the respiratory level and, but at the cellular level, at the microscopic cellular level. Has to be that much in. Adrenaline can continue to go on further and further and further, and now we are talking about genetic susceptibilities. So when there's genetic susceptibilities, sometimes you clear things out too quickly, and sometimes you clear them out too slowly. But the problem is that what's going into having to clear it out? Are you getting enough stuff to have to clear out in the first place? What happens if you have an absorption problem, you're eating contaminated foods, you're not able to break things down, you have a leakiness of your gut components, you have bacteria and H. pylori infections? What happens if those things are going on and you're not able to get the stuff to go down for the thing to clear slowly or clear quickly in the first place? Sometimes, hard for me to say, sometimes what happens is you have that perfect storm of there's not enough going in there and it's being cleared out too quickly. And these would be people that have ADD and focus problems and can't stick still and are all over the place. And then complicating the matters is they'll try to go on a medication and you never find the right formula, and now you're throwing even more haywire into the situation. Hopefully this is making a lot of sense to you guys. So that's what this page is for. So how does that relate to adrenal fatigue? I would describe adrenaline as the hormone. It's kind of the verb of what's happening. Is the hormone being released? Is it, it's not meant to be constantly released. It's just meant to be a fight or flight mechanism to save our lives in times of preserving our livelihood and making us survive. Now what it's doing is it's killing us. It's the opposite now, because it shouldn't be there over and over and over again. And it's not so much just the adrenaline, but what's signaling the adrenaline. And whatever's signaling the adrenaline, how is that extra adrenaline impacting what's going on in the body? And what other things are what's signaling the adrenaline? What other things are being impacted too? So when we talk about adrenal fatigue versus adrenaline, we're talking about adrenal fatigue is the adrenals continue to have to coordinate that, because they don't just make the adrenaline. They make cortisol, and they make mineralocorticoids and aldosterone and a whole lot of other ones that we can get into as well. But they regulate your minerals, and they regulate your basically your inflammatory mechanisms, your glucose levels. They have a lot of impact on your overall health, and they're resilient. That's why doctors will say that there's no such thing as adrenal fatigue, because when they do an ACTH test and they stimulate the adrenals, they're still fighting. They're still fighting. And that's great. But what happens if it's too high? Or what happens if it can't produce enough and then it crashes? Or what happens if it's way too low? Which way is it? Those are all the things that you have to figure out. And really, most importantly, You got to learn how to take the finger off the on button. And so I was talking to a friend last night, and he likes to work out, and I like to work out. But sometimes you could be working out too much. But then, you know, and let's say you do a CrossFit type workout, and your body starts breaking down. You need to understand and listen to your body, and you need to be able to not get into a permanent on button by overdoing it. Sometimes overdoing it will keep you in that on position than not doing enough. And vice versa. If you're not doing anything, then that's certainly going to keep you in an on position. So in life, it's all about getting into that bell-shaped curve, and really with your life, not just with your supplements, but with your balance, with how hard you push things. Are you listening to your body? Are you backing off on your body? That brings in diet. Do you know what's going on with your diet? So many people, and I like the controversy. What's going on with keto? I heard you can't do keto if you have adrenals. I tried keto, it didn't work. Or I love keto, but then it stopped working. Or keto's really, really bad for you no matter what. There's a lot of yeses, nos, yeses, nos, yeses, nos to each different question. And that really figures, you have to determine for your own body what's right. And that's really, really important. And you need to realize when you're reading something or you're hearing about something, that you actually determine for your own body if that was right or not. And did you listen to your body? You know, one of the analogies I use, you've probably heard me say before, is when you go on the Shark Tank and you present your idea of, hey, I got a great investment, here's what it is, and you say to them, you know, can you invest in this? And they say to you, well, tell us about your ROI, tell us about your production, how much does it cost to produce it, what's the growth, what's your sales, do you have any projected sales, do you have other things that we need to concern about, what's your, you know, you ask all those questions. You ask the same questions to people who are trying to get into keto or trying to do supplements or trying to get their life back. They don't know. I don't want to do that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And then I say to them in a loving way, I say, okay, if you were on the Shark Tank, would they give you the investment? No. But the irony is, this is your health that you're investing in. And it's an epidemic. It's really a battle. I hate to say it, it's a battle. And you know, I also use the analogy of you can be working really hard to do something favorable, or you're working really hard to not do it favorable. The choice is which one do you want to work really hard on. And the favorable is the healthy thing. And yes, you're human, you're going to fall off, but at the end of the day, you have to keep your eye on the prize. And realize you can't keep beating yourself up inside. And there's a whole other aspect of being on the stuck and on position, because I always said, if you talk to people the way you talk to yourself, you wouldn't have any friends. That doesn't happen with a lot of people, but it happens to enough people where that adds on to their physical being stuck in the on position. And that's the adrenaline concerns and everything we talked about earlier as well, and with the adrenal fatigue. So I'm really trying to create a society, an adrenal fatigue society. And it's going to be our inside code in terms of those that don't know how deep we go with adrenal fatigue will continue to judge and say, oh, adrenal fatigue, another adrenal fatigue society, where they don't even realize that there's no such thing as adrenal fatigue. But meanwhile, we're sort of all behind the scenes saying, we know that there's adrenal fatigue. We do know that, but we know that traditional medicine, in a lot of ways being correct, that the adrenals being so resilient when you do an ACTH test and they still pump out adrenals. We know that doesn't fit the medical definition of adrenal fatigue. Yes, we know that. But what you guys don't know, that we in this community know, is that it goes much deeper than that. And plus, the adrenals really can be impacted. The adrenals are maladaptive. The adrenals don't make a good quality cortisol. The adrenals can really be fatigued, or they're not working at the right times of the day, or the hormones that they produce is too much, or the hormones that they produce isn't enough. There's a lot of things that the adrenals, let's be truthful here, doctors, if it's not called adrenal fatigue because you don't like the definition, can we agree that they're tired and they're doing a lot of work just as everything else in the body's doing work? And that means that it doesn't just have to mean that they're not going to output a cortisol amount that meets your little definition of how high it should be. Listen to the patient, hear what they're dealing with, see if they have health issues. And I always said, no one wants to suffer. No one wants to feel this way. And we should be commending and commanding and applauding all the ones that are considered difficult cases, because they're the ones that are trying harder. They're the ones that are working harder. They're the ones that realize, I got a baby, I got a child, I got a spouse, I got a loved one, I got an aunt, an uncle, a parent that relies on me, and I rely on me. I want to see the old me, and I want to enjoy the things that I want to enjoy, and I don't want to have to be struggling and climbing that mountain all the time, but I'm a warrior and I'm still pushing it. Those are the difficult patients. And if those are the difficult patients, I would really want those difficult patients. The difficult patients are the apathetic ones that don't get that, that they don't get it, and they need help to get it. So anyways, I hope you got a lot out of this adrenal fatigue and adrenaline being stuck in the on position. It has a lot of bells and whistles going off in your head, thinking that you're thinking a little bit differently about this. I'm going to start to really build a community where we're going to have a lot of resources for you guys, and we're also going to be able to help with solutions that aren't working for you. So I hope that was really helpful, and I look forward to ending your adrenal fatigue nightmare. Thank you so much.